today's workshop. Nice to meet you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our meeting, let me deliver the rundown of the event as follows. The first is opening, followed by Quran recitation. The next agenda is singing Indonesia Raya National Anthem and Mars Muhammadiyah, followed by Dean speech, and the next agenda is the main session, followed by sharing session or question and answer session, and ended by closing. Ladies and gentlemen, let us start today's agenda by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make this event beneficial for us, and this event can run smoothly. Amin. The next agenda is Quran recitation by Miss Elvita Alifdiani. To Miss Elvita, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق فلهم عذاب جهنم جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق صدق الله العظيم. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Miss Elvita, who has recited the Holy Quran for us. May Allah always give us guidance and help. Amin. The next agenda is singing Indonesia Raya National Anthem and Mars Muhammadiyah, which will be guided by the operator. Everyone, please stand up.
Di
For the operator,
jalan
the
kau
time is yours.
diklojen.
Indonesia,
be seated. The next agenda is the welcoming speech from Faculty of Teacher Training and Education and open this agenda officially. Now I would like to invite Mr. Dr. Dodi Hartanto MPD to deliver the welcoming speech and open this agenda officially. To Mr. Dodi Hartanto MPD, the time is yours.
Sorry, because the mic is still mute from the admin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Good morning, the honorable keynote speaker, Mr. Professor Norimune Kawai from Hiroshima University, Japan, and all the lecturers and also all the participants. Professor Kawai Sensei, I hope you will still remember me because in 2018 I come to Hiroshima University and meet Kawai Sensei in Hiroshima University. And then, so I would like to say thank you, Mr. Kawai, Kawai Sensei, for your time in workshop in Guidance and Counseling Study Program. I hope you will still in health and also still success in all your agenda. Today, I want to speak in the name of Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Ahmad Dahlan University. All the participants, welcome to the workshop of the Inclusive Education 2021. I want to say also congratulations to all committee who have already given their best of conduct this inspiring event. As a Vice Dean of a Faculty of Teacher Training and also Education, I'm really proud to study program of Guidance and Counseling that have successfully maintained this reputable academic forum with very interesting topic. Thank you to all of distinguished lecturers and also all the participants, each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us in this workshop. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously helped us to make this event come together to become a success. You have all been chosen to be a part of our workshop today, which bring a very crucial theme, strengthening guidance and counseling research in inclusive education setting. Again, I would like to say a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for attending this agenda and enjoying the magnificent workshop today. Thank you very much, and also for Kawai Sensei, I would like to say thank you very much for coming. Arigato gozaimashita. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Dodi Hartanto MPD. Ladies and gentlemen, inclusive, good quality education is a foundation for dynamic and equitable societies. A quote by Desmond Tutu. Now, we come to the main agenda, that is the presentation of Professor Kawai from Department of Special Needs Education, Hiroshima University, Japan. He is majoring in special needs education and his research interest is in special needs education and inclusive education. Today, Kawai Sensei will present his material entitled Strengthening Guidance and Counseling Research in Inclusive Education Setting. For those who want to ask questions, please write on the chat room. However, if you want to ask directly to Professor Kawai, we will have the sharing session after the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Norimune Kawai. To Kawai Sensei, the time is yours.
Hey, hello everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to such a great convention. And yes, Mr. Dean, yes, it's been a couple of years since, we met before. And yeah, actually, it was such a great opportunity to be able to, meet the faculty members of Ahmad Dahlan University. And we keep, friendship since then. And I've been invited to your university, several years ago as well. So, hopefully after COVID-19, things, have getting better, then hopefully, we can restart our exchange, together, and hopefully, yeah, we can invite, faculty members of your university, and hopefully, yeah, we can, visit your university together. So, and actually, there is one student, who has been, who is a faculty member of your university and working under me, and she has been doing a lot of, progress, and hopefully, yeah, she'll finish, to be able to obtain her degree pretty soon and go back to your country. So, this is really important to have this kind of opportunity to be able to communicate each other and conduct the research together, so that we can have like a mutual exchange in terms of just a faculty, not only just a faculty exchange, but also hopefully in the future we can do like a student exchange program, so that we're going to have a firm relationships between our university. Okay, today I'd like to talk about the topic, which is strengthening guidance and counseling research in inclusive education settings. So I believe there are faculty members, students, and teachers. So I'd like to talk about not only about research aspects, but also practical aspects of guidance and counseling a little bit, because it's sort of a short presentation, so I don't know how well I can go on, but hopefully, yeah, I can just introduce the basic concepts of guidance and counseling. Also, I'd like to introduce what's happening in Japan in terms of guidance and counseling in school settings. And also, I'll talk about a little bit about what's happening in the United States in terms of guidance and counseling. And this year, this fiscal year, I even became, busier because, not only doing the professors, but also I became the, deputy executive director in terms of the international relationships. So that's why, it's really important to be able to, have a good connection with other universities in foreign countries. So that's why, Ahmad Dahlan University is one of the, important universities for us to be able to, do the research together and do the student exchange programs, such and such. Okay, so I just, well, because I'm not a school psychologist or something, so my, major is special ed and speech language pathology. So in order to prepare for this presentation, I just surfed, internet and what's happening in terms of guidance and counseling in other countries. But when I tried to search, the references or resources in terms of guidance and counseling, there are so many, the topics or research papers published in Indonesia. So I felt like, oh, there must be a really hot topic in your country in terms of how teachers are going to provide guidance and counseling for teachers. So I believe there are so many background information or social background why your country has to be prioritized in terms of guidance and counseling in school settings. So maybe, well, we wish we had enough time to, discuss on why, but, well, because, this is such a limited time. So let me, keep going in my presentation. But I would like to, talk about a little bit the background information, why it is important, to be able to, conduct the guidance and counseling for teachers, to be able to serve a better education for students with special needs. Okay, the guidance and counseling are really important in any countries, but Japan these days, the counseling and guidance is also really important. It's one of the main focus in school settings. So the one of the reasons why we think it is really important is based on our national curricula. So we set up the national curricula and renew every 10 years. And now we plunged into the new version of our national curriculum in Japan. So the current version of national curriculum, we pretty much focus on the active learning and also the curriculum development, and also counseling and guidance for students and teachers. So we tend to focus on counseling and guidance for our students, but also, teachers are really, key people, key personnel to be able to provide, or they could receive, guidance and counseling, because especially in Japan, teachers' workload is really heavy. So they have to work really hard and they have to work really long. Probably, it's going to be the same thing, same situation as in your country. But, that has been really a big problem for teachers. They have to work really hard and they have to work really long time. Youngsters who wanted to become teachers, sort of, saying, oh, okay, well, teachers are a really hard job and, they should pick something else, instead of being teachers. So that's been really problem in our country. So these days, teachers are considered as one of the black job, which means, well, they have to work hard, but, they don't get much money, even though they work hard. So, even our course, I'm teaching, I'm doing a teacher education, but some students feel like, say, oh, okay, well, I feel like, well, even though I would like to graduate from our program, but still I don't want to be teachers. So I feel like, okay, so you could change university or course, but they never say that. I'd like to stay here, but I don't want to be teachers. So and that's been a problem. And many, school districts, they do sort of the, exam for candidate teachers to be able to work, in their districts. And those people are really insane, okay, well, the number of applicants are decreasing a lot. So that's why, they have to, they have to also, invite, graduates or, pre-service teachers who don't have enough confidence to be able to, keep their job as teachers. So that kind of things are happening right now in Japan. So, teachers, used to be really, have a good strength, and they really liked their kids, and they loved their job. But nowadays, school districts also need to hire people who don't necessarily love their kids or, don't like to teach, but still have a certificate, those kind of stuff. Even they know, they don't have enough confidence, or, they don't a good fit to, work in the schools, but still they have to, hire them, because, lack of the number of teachers would be a problem. So, but most of them who become teachers, even though they didn't want to, or they don't have enough confidence to be able to do that, they tend to quit, once they become teachers. Or they become really, ill psychologically after they become teachers. So that kind of things are happening in Japan. So that's why not only for students, but also, for teachers, guidance and counselings are really important. So, but mainly I'd like to talk about students, not teachers. But well, in terms of guidance and counseling, that is really important not only for students but also teachers. So why it is important to talk about guidance and counseling in Japan, not only for teachers but also of course students. So since 2007, our national curriculum has been hugely improved in terms of special education. We used to call special education until 2007, but since 2007, we started it called special needs education. So beforehand, we used to teach students based on their disabilities. So, okay, if, students are deaf and, we signed, we provided language education for them. So we didn't really think of individual differences. We just, considered their kinds of disabilities. But since 2007, we've started thinking of individual differences, and we have to create individualized education plan for each student. Even, our government strongly recommend teachers or schools to create IEPs, individualized education plan for students who have disabilities, but still in regular classrooms. So, many students in Japan are, with disabilities are either in special schools, special needs classrooms, resource rooms, or regular classrooms. But, we didn't really provide, special education or special needs education for students who are in regular classrooms. But nowadays, our government really enforce teachers to provide appropriate education for students with disabilities, even though they are in regular classrooms. So that's why, it is really important for counseling and guidance for students with disabilities and those who don't have disabilities. In Japan, usually we teach, 35 to 40 students in one regular classroom. So I believe, this is fewer than your country's situation probably, but still, most of the teachers in regular classrooms think, oh, that's too many, So what they say is, well, because there are so many students, I can't really deal with students with disabilities. But that shouldn't happen because even though, students are with disabilities are in regular classrooms, teachers and schools are supposed to provide appropriate education. But, many students, especially, like autism spectrum disorders or, learning disabilities, ADHD, those students tend to have personal troubles with other students because of the difficulties in connecting with others. So in that case, students with disabilities, they get hurt, by, teased by other students, or students with disabilities, they could be hurt by students with disabilities because of the communication difficulties or so. So both students could be, victims. So in that case, school counseling is really important. So the first, column says, appropriate settings, places, opportunities for guidance in counseling, and also enhancement of guidance in counseling function are the issues. So we know the guidance and counseling are really important, but unlike the United States, most of the schools don't have any school psychologists. However, school districts hire several school counselors and they dispatch schools. So usually one school psychologist have to travel around 10 to 20 schools per week. So that's a lot. So, whenever I talk with the school counselors, they, usually complain that, it's okay to visit, many schools, but it is really difficult for them to be able to connect, students, because, they have to deal with many students. They can't really remember who they are. And the students also, don't remember who they are. And they tend to have short conversations or short, counseling sessions, like up to 30 minutes or so. and they have to travel on several schools. So for students, they could meet a school psychologist probably once a week to once a month. So even though school counselings are really important, which is told by our government, they don't provide enough budget to hire school psychologists. So there are so many lack of school psychologists, and they have so many burdens to be able to have lots of cases. So that kind of problems are happening in Japan. So yes, from the government side, yes, we provide school psychologists for students who need a psychological treatment, but it's not enough. And also, in terms of guidance and counseling, the purpose of the guidance and counseling is not only for students' daily livings, to be able to deal with their personal difficulties or communication breakdown and such and such. The government says the guidance and the counseling is really important for their future, especially when they consider the future career. The early guidance and the counseling are necessary. So there are so many jobs we don't know. There are so many generation gaps that are happening between teachers and students right now. In Japan, many students say, oh, in the future I'd like to become YouTuber. Okay, well, YouTuber, but the teachers don't know what it is, right? So they can't really communicate each other. So because for teachers generations, they want to become teachers, medical doctors, professors maybe, but nowadays younger kids say, oh, I'd like to become YouTubers, I'd like to become skateboarders. So of course some of them say doctors, professors, teachers, but many students say something new and we don't know. So that kind of things are really happening. And so in order to provide the appropriate guidance and counseling, we really have to learn, and school counselors also have to learn what's happening in terms of the job market and what kind of futures they could walk along. So that is really important. So in order to provide appropriate guidance and counseling for their future career, we really have to know what's out there. And also several years ago, one of the scholars in the United Kingdom provided what kind of jobs will be diminished within 20 years or so. So some of them are medical doctors, because well, probably AI is doing really well, so they can diagnose the people's diseases or illness, and they can provide the good counseling. So we don't know what's going to happen actually in the next 20 years, but some researchers say, oh, okay, some of the jobs will be diminished because of automation, and AI does better than human does. So we really have to anticipate what kind of jobs and what kind of careers we have to provide for students in the future. So that is part of the importance of guidance and counseling for Japan. Okay, so what is guidance? I believe many of you guys know what it is, but just I'd like to briefly touch what it is. So guidance is a holistic development of individual. So guidance needs to be provided in the context of total development of personality. So as I told you, well, we really shouldn't guide them by looking at the current situation. We really have to anticipate what happens next. Also, we really have to collect the data, what previously they were doing in terms of their learnings, the daily livings, and such and such. especially students who have disabilities, they experience a lot of disadvantages, and they get hurt a lot of situations. So, many students don't have, enough confidence. So we really have to know students with disabilities tend to have, difficulties to believe themselves. So, we really have to encourage them of course, we have to tell them what, difficulties they have. But at the same time, we really have to tell them what kind of strengths they have. So, and, but even though we tell them their strengths, they might not believe it because they get hurt by others or by themselves, so many times. For example, I see a lot of, students with disabilities here. So for some of the elementary kids, I teach, like a math, Japanese language, and such and such. And interestingly, students who have difficulties in math, when I tell them to, do the calculation or something, and, when they're doing the calculation, then in that case, when, I do that really, weird face for them, oh, like that, So what's going to happen to them is, they tend to erase their answers. I didn't tell them if their answers are correct or wrong, but whenever I, gave them the grimace face or, oh, kind of face, they tend to erase their answers. If they have enough confidence to be able to, answer correctly, they never do that. But because they feel like, even though they try to answer the problems, they believe, oh, I'll make mistakes. Okay, so in that case, if even though we don't say, oh, it's wrong or right, if we do the certain facial expressions, they tend to erase their answers. So even though, so because I'm mean person, so even though, students are, writing the correct answers, sometimes I do the grimace face or, weird face like that. Oh, So, and then of course, they try to erase the answers, and I tell them, oh, why do you erase your answer? It's correct, So they will say, oh, because you showed us a weird face, I thought that's why I thought it's wrong, but I didn't tell you it's wrong or right, believe yourself. So, the learning is not the importance of learning is not just, answering correctly or, wrongly. It is really, the purpose of the learning is how you're going to make incorrect answer to be correct. So the process is really important. So students, doesn't understand quickly. So, we really have to walk through with our students, So if they never change their behaviors to erase their answers because they feel like, oh, it's shame to, make a wrong answers. I usually use, pen instead of pencil so that they never be able to erase their answers. So whenever they make, wrong answers, I encourage them, oh, it's the opportunity to be able to learn better. And let's make a comparison between the wrong answer and right answer, correct answer. And let's, check which processes are wrong and how you're supposed to fix the wrong answer, okay? So the learning process is really important. But, most of the students who have disabilities, they only look at the consequences. But the processes are really important. That's what we are supposed to encourage them. So, which is, part of the guidance you can do. And I'm sure, most of the teachers have been doing so. So guidance is, well, some teachers feel like, oh, guidance, it's something done by school psychologist or something, somebody who have the authorized, to be able to do that. No, it's just a daily in our daily livings. Any teachers are doing so every day, every time when you meet your students. Okay, so the guidance is sort of the special words terminology, but at the same time, that's a usual life for teachers to provide. Okay, so we really, whenever we provide guidance, as I told you, we really have to look at their past, present, and the future. Okay, and also we have to recognize individual differences, just like my example of students who are not doing well in terms of calculation and math. We really have to tell them, what is a tendency of making mistakes. Many students who have difficulties in doing some learnings, they have certain tendencies. So we really have to try to find what kind of tendencies they have whenever they make mistakes. And if students learn, oh, okay, I tend to make mistake in this way, and if they also know how to correct it, okay, then they're gonna learn better, and they're gonna provide the correct answers instead of the wrong answers. So if they keep providing the correct answers, they feel like, oh, okay, I can do it instead of I can't do it. So that kind of confidence is really important, and we really have to encourage them. Oh, okay, you have the power. You have the good strength to be able to work things better. So, however, the teaching methodologies and strategies could be different among students because of the individual differences. So we really have to understand individual differences and what kind of strategy will work better. Okay, so acceptance of individual needs, as I told you, guidance is based on individual needs. So, freedom, respect, dignity, while that kind of needs might be different among students. Also, students might have difficulty in math, language, and other subjects. So, of course, we have to really, diagnose or observe what kind of difficulties, underneath not be able to work better in certain subjects. But at the same time, we really have to know, okay, well, even though these specific students have difficulties in social studies, but however, he does really well in science or something. So we really have to, look at our students' pros and cons, or strengths or weakness. Both sides are really important. So sometimes when we look at their strength, by using their strength, we can bring up their, weaknesses. That could happen in our students. So and also the guidance, involves using skills to communicate love, regard, respect for others. So, this is really important to have a good social relationships for students, because, humans cannot live, by themselves. So we really have to connect with others. But the students with disabilities tend to have difficulties in connecting with others. So, of course, we can teach strategies such as social skills, to be able to connect with others. But in addition to just skills or strategies, we really have to, have them notice, oh, it is really important to love other people or respect, other people, so that, they will respect me. It's sort of a mutual thing, it's not one way. Okay. So, well, so that is really important. So love could not be mutual, but the respect or regards, those kind of things could be mutual. So if you respect, your student will respect you. If you don't do that, they never do that. They pretend to do that, but they never do that. So, it is really important, to respect our students, and they will respect you. Okay. And the guidance, is designed to provide assistance to a person in crisis in solving it through self-discovery and self-direction. So it is really important concept. We can't walk through with our students until they die, right? Because they tend to be younger than us, and we tend to, probably in the high percentage of the time, we tend to, die earlier than our students, right? So we can't walk through their lives. So, whenever you directly teach our students, of course, those students are under our responsibilities, but once they graduate, or once they move to another grade, and if you don't teach them directly, and it's not going to be your responsibility. However, it is really important for students with disabilities to be able to be independent until they finish their school time. So because after they finish their official school years, they have to be independent. Well, independent doesn't necessarily mean they have to do everything by themselves. We can't do everything. So, but if they need help, they have to tell others, "Oh, I need help," right? So that is also independent. So we really have to, teach them what kind of things they're supposed to do in order to become independent. So self-discovery, self-direction, those concepts are really important for students become independent. So guidance is not guiding everything for our students, but also we really have to promote their notices or discoveries. Oh, I understand now, or that kind of, notifications are really important for our students. Okay, and those are really, important principles, but, it's sort of a repetition of my presentation. So yeah, you can read, the contents here later on. Okay. And well, this is also, but I'd like to talk about the last one. Guidance services help the individual to become increasingly competent in self-direction and self-help. So guidance is really important, so competent, self-direction, self-help. As I told you before, it's not just to guide everything. So, well, let's follow, well, because I'm a teacher, you as a student have to follow everything, to me. It's not correct. We really have to respect our students, and we really have to, congratulate their development, and we really have to promote their independence. So even though some students, cannot do the self-direction, correctly, but everybody make mistakes. That's okay. But until they finish their school, if they obtain their skills, are competent in self-direction and self-help, that is really big achievement for their future, because they live longer than the school years. After school years, they will live 40, 50, 60 years, but the school years, it's like a 12 years to 16 years or so. So it's much shorter, right? So we need help our students to become independent or competent to be able to self themselves, to live their social lives. Okay. And well, let me explain the third one, which is most important in here. And to have an effective guidance, a system of individual and group evaluation and research should be organized and utilized. So, probably, by reading the contents I introduced here, probably you will have some ideas. Oh, okay, what kind of research studies you can do in terms of guidance. Okay, So for example, you can just talk about what kind of guidance program you can create for school students to, foresee their futures. How we're gonna provide guidance education for our students to become independent, okay? Or what kind of guidance education we are supposed to provide teachers, because most of the time teachers directly provide the guidance for their students. So maybe, what kind of program contents you can develop for teachers training in terms of guidance and counseling, okay? And of course, you can research on the efficacy of the counseling or guidance, okay? So pre and post, you can, obtain the data from at least 2 points so that you may be able to, figure out the efficacy of the providing the guidance or counseling for your students, or could be teachers. So it is really important to think of the research ideas. So what kind of research available in your country, especially, if you have in a regular classroom, if there are so many students, guidance could be provided individually, but most of the time they provide guidance, with a group. So, group evaluation and research, which is indicated here. So that's why, they say group, okay? So guidance could be provided group, but counseling usually provided individually, right? So you can, think of, okay, in which occasions you can provide guidance and in which occasion you can provide, counseling, okay? And also the idea or concept of the guidance is just not only providing the guidance directly to your students, but also by promoting the idea of guidance, hopefully your students will provide guidance for younger kids or classmates and such, so that they can promote the atmosphere or environment to be able to help each other. So that kind of environment could be created if you effectively provide appropriate guidance for your students and teachers. Okay, the next one is a counseling. So most of you guys know what counseling is. So, I don't want to go over everything. This is sort of the, topics, and the contents. I just wanted to provide you to read, in details later on, not here. So counseling, of course, it is really important. And especially these days, especially in Japan, many teachers, not only students, but also teachers, have the difficulties, in teaching, or working, such a, heavy load. So I have several students, who are in our doctor program, but, being teachers. Some of them are really, complain every time we meet, and how difficult, or how hard it is to be able to work in school settings, especially, during COVID-19. We experienced, school shutdown. Well, it is much shorter than your, country's school shutdown. However, these days, our government or Ministry of Education raised up the problem of, the lots of students are starting, absence, being absent from schools. And the number of, the absence have been increasing dramatically. So, well, even today, especially, in universities, I just got an email, right before my presentation from one of my students. After this presentation, I have another class and I have to teach, but, he just, emailed me and saying, oh, can I take your course online today? you know. I'm like, no, I could set up, but I was expecting to meet directly with other students, but but the students are really got used to be able to work online. So whenever they don't feel well, or or if they feel like, oh, okay, well, it's really I don't want to go to schools, but I'd like to take my course online so that I can stay at home, such and such. So some students say, oh, can I take it online today? Even though I tell them, well, let's meet directly. So that kind of things are happening, in school settings, school systems, elementary, middle, and high school systems in Japan. And also, this is also really unfortunate, but the number of, suicide cases are increasing, especially children. So I don't know what kind of pressures they are feeling, but some parents are losing their jobs because they can't open up their shops or businesses. So all of a sudden they can't earn money, and which pressure their kids and such and such. So we don't. We have been investigating the reason why the number of suicide cases are increasing, but certainly it's been 2 years since COVID-19 has been influenced our society. But at least in Japan, the number of the people who get COVID-19 has been dramatically decreasing. However, still the number of suicide cases or absence from school cases are increasing dramatically. So we really have to investigate what's happening. But at least what I can say is, counseling is really important. But we tend to provide counseling for students. But nowadays, I feel like, we are supposed to provide counseling for teachers and family members. So those people are really having troubles, difficulties, in terms of having the social lives. So I don't know what's happening in your country, but at least in Japan, we really need a counseling. And nowadays, our government has been working really hard to create a new certificate of the clinical psychologist. We have had the certificate of clinical psychologist, but it's a private certificate. But now the government has, started creating the national or the governmental certificate in counseling. So hopefully this will widespread in our country, and many of the teachers, counselors will obtain this certificate to be able to provide counseling for any people actually. Okay, so in order to provide counseling, the comfort is really important and necessary. So if your students don't feel comfortable being with you, the counseling never becomes successful. So in order to promote the comfortable places, you really have to have the good rapport. So good relationships with your students, and if the room is pleasant and comfortable, students will be able to talk about directly about their difficulties or what kind of hardness they have right now, and such and such. So and I'll just go through the third one. The counselor and counselee will feel more relaxed, and the sessions will be more productive. So calmness, relaxed, pleasant, those environments are really important, and we have to really listen to them instead of providing lots of information. So that's a big difference between guidance and counseling. Guidance, occasionally we have to provide the information to our students, but counseling, which is mostly listen, to our students. And hopefully, they will, lead the accurate answers or appropriate answers to be able to, be independent or, work better or become more positive. So we really have to let them, answer to their problems. So in order to have the good relationships with other students, one element which is necessary is empathy. So empathy is a multidimensional and complex social phenomenon consisting of cognitive, affective, and relational processes. So cognitive, affective are really important part of empathy because they really have to think of, oh, okay, what is the the good relationships and what kind of feelings they have when they meet with other people. So those kind of feelings and understandings and cognition are really important, and those have to be really positive to be able to play a good role of counseling. And as a counselor, you must build the relationship with the client through all skills you have. Probably most of you guys are not counselors. I believe you guys are teachers, and some of them are majoring in psychology. So those people might be counselor in the future. So I don't know, what consists of the audiences today, but either way, even though you're going to be counselors, teachers, you really have to, learn how you're going to create the good relationships with other students and your colleagues also. So if, people are able to connect with you and they can talk about the difficulties, if you have to talk about your difficulties or something you feel really shame, if you don't, it's going to be really difficult to talk to somebody who don't know well, right? You don't want to talk to, something, you feel shame to other people who don't know well, right? So if you have good relationships with other students or colleagues, and if they believe you, oh, even though I talk about something personal or something, shameful, but, you understand the situation and you give them good advices, or they, if you give us some opportunities to be able to think deeply about how to solve the problems, if the people around you know about that, they will talk about anything they would like to provide, even though which are the personal things or some shameful things they can provide. But in order to do that, you also have to be open to others, because everybody makes mistake. Everybody makes mistake. And if you behave like, oh, I'm a counselor, I had a PhD or master's in psychology, I have a really good high society person, if you behave like that, nobody will talk about their personal things, right? So you really have to become approachable for others, especially students with disabilities. Even though they have disabilities, their eyesights are really sharp, which means they really look at and observe you and think of, oh, what kind of person you are, and their judgment tends to be really correct. They are really sharp. They have really sharp eyes. So we have to know that. So, in order to provide good counseling, we really have to provide, we have to be open. And, we really have to be ready to talk about our failures, or bad experiences, we made before such and such. So that, they feel like, oh, okay, well, my teacher or my counselor talk about their mistakes, failures in the past, and which oh, I feel like I can safe to talk about my failures or my personal things, such and such. So we really have to be open, okay, so that we can just listen. And also have to be good listeners, so that your students will provide lots of good information for you. And the trust, which is another element which is really important for counseling. So trust, psychological state that comprises the intention to accept vulnerability due to positive expectations about the intentions or behavior of another. So, trust. We really have to have the good relationships. So, to do that, we trust each other, right? We really have to trust each other. So that we can talk about our mistakes or difficulties, such and such. So if we don't have, we can't set up our trust in our relationships, probably your students never tell you the truth, and also congruence, which is another important element of counseling. Congruence, awareness, the ability to be aware of one's own internal experience and transparency. So as I told you, we have to be open. So transparency is really important. And also the willingness to communicate to the other person what is going within. So we have to be really good listeners, and we really have to be ready, for our students to communicate to us. So, okay, come on. Yeah, we are ready to listen. And let's, think of your problems. We really have to behave like that. And we really have to show them the willingness to help. Confidentiality, of course, which is really important. Needless to say, confidentiality. So we can't really talk about what's happened, during the session. Of course, if we get authorized, by the clients or students to talk, to share the information with their parents, teachers, and such, then we can do that. But without any authorizations, we never be able to talk about what happened during the session. So if we break the confidentiality, it's going to be a huge problem. Or probably we could break the law, or we could certainly, break our good relationships between your students and us. So confidentiality is a really, a central aspect of counseling, which is told in the third column. Okay. All right. So why the guidance and counseling are really important in Japan? So as I told you, the national curricula in Japan, we've revised recently, and we really talk about the importance of counseling in our curriculum guideline. I'm not going to read everything, but the enhancement of the function of guidance, or counseling, which is a sort of the central aspects which should be promoted in school settings. Especially these days, students are really, diverse. Their situations are really diverse. And sometimes, could be a generation gap or other situations. We really have difficulties to understand what's happening in certain students in the background. So sometimes, even in Japan, the poverty is becoming a really huge, aspect of, not functioning of students, not only with disabilities, but also without disabilities. So in that case, if you observe your students only, you never be able to lead the good answer. Okay. So, I had this kind of example before. There was a school, and I observed many schools every year. And when I observed one school, and a classmate teacher brought up a problem or concern with me, and there was one student, who doesn't concentrate on their learnings. So, he was just roaming and never concentrate on his learnings. And he sleeps, during the class time. So the classmate teacher told me, oh, he must be ADHD or such, or something like that. But I asked him, I asked the teachers, okay, so why do you think so? And what is the evidence? And he didn't have any evidence, or, and the student never had a, diagnosis of ADHD. And when I observed the student, well, he slept, and he didn't concentrate of his learning. But I wasn't sure, if he was really ADHD or so. So I asked the teacher, okay, so have you ever, heard anything about his misbehavior from his home, or house, or family members? And he said no. So I told the, teacher, okay, please ask his family members, if they observe the same thing at home, okay? And he contacted, the home, and he found out there's the family members had a big trouble, big difficulties, So what happened to the family members was actually his family consisted of mother and 3 sisters only, okay? And his mother, when he contacted with, his mother, it was found out his mother was, kind of bipolar disorder, and she couldn't even, make meals, or, so she was just, staying in the bedroom whole time. And there's three sisters, okay, but they were working nighttime. So the student, who are considered as ADHD, actually didn't have any opportunities to be able to, eat his meal at the appropriate time. So the only time he could eat his meal was like 2 or 3 a.m. Okay, once a day he could eat his meal at home. So, and every day when, well, of course he was sleeping, but whenever, his sisters came back home, his sisters bring, some light meal to him. And he had to wake up, even though it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Then he had to finish, his meal. And of course, schools provide lunch. So in fact, he had 2 opportunities to be able to eat. But, because every day he had to wake up like 2, 3 a.m., of course he was sleepy, right? So I told the schools to be able, to connect with the social welfare department of the city. And they did it. And, then the city provided the home helper to the family members. And so that after that, he became to be able to focus on his study. He didn't sleep during class time and such and such. So if we only look at, what's happening or behaviors only at schools, we might misunderstand the actual situation of the student. So you really have to need to connect with family members and other teachers and other resources, who know the specific students. So that you will be able to figure out what's happened to the specific students, which is really also really important, in Japan, to look at the current situation of students who have difficulties in certain areas. So guidance and counseling in Japan, I just put the 4 important aspects to why we need to provide guidance and counseling in Japan. So one, motivate students to study and engage in activities to increase their interest and motivation. And also the second one, adaptation to the new group life. So, well, we shouldn't, hopefully our students will have wide relationships with, the wider range of students. Of course, some students prefer to have just 1 or 2 students. That's fine. But, we try to increase their relationships in the future. So, which will, promote their social communication skills. Okay, 3, guidance and support for adapting rapidly changing situations. So sometimes, if you provide effective guidance or support or counseling, their behaviors or their situation will quickly change. So, it is really important. That's why it is really important to think of not only providing the, learning opportunities, but also counseling guidance for them that might help them to be independent quickly. And for the existence of children who are, maladjusted to school life and such, as I told you, well, teachers, many teachers look at what's happening in the situation of certain students only in their classrooms. And in that case, they tend to misjudgment. They tend to lead the misjudgment or maladjustment. So in order to provide the good eyesight of, looking at their student situations, we really have to encourage teachers to connect with other people, to look at, or observe students from different aspects or different situations or environments. So, what kind of research studies we can do? Again, maybe, we can try to, research on how we can develop the ability to adapt to classroom and school life by providing guidance and counseling, or, how we can foster the ability and attitude to think about how to be and live as a human being in the present and the future. Okay, and we can think of the idea of research studies fostering the ability to form and develop human relationships. Or we can think of the research, fostering the ability and attitude to make choices and decisions, such as choosing elective subjects and career paths. So there are so many ideas you can provide, and also counseling and guidance, or guidance and counseling are really important, not only in Japan, but also in the United States. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about, because of time, I'm not going to talk about everything here, but, counseling is really important in the United States, because, there are so many cases of violence or, or maladaptations and such in the United States, especially, poverty, is really leading lots of social problems in the wide range of the United States. So that's why, counseling, guidance, those kind of elements are really important for students and parents to be able to promote their career, academic, personal, and social development. And actually in the United States, not only teachers, but also many specialists are working, like counselors, school psychologists, social workers, school nurses, speech pathologists, audiologists, OT, occupational therapists, physical therapists. So many specialists are working for schools, and they, get together whenever they, diagnose students with disabilities or create IEPs for them. We meet together and we discuss together. And of course, we're going to centralize parents and children. Okay, so that kind of discussions are really important. And if we conclude, okay, in addition to learning services, counselings or psychological, treatments are really important. We're gonna, add counseling services into the IEPs. So, but Japan, most of the time, teachers have to do everything. So that's why, it's going to be a burden for teachers, oh, okay, well, I have to teach many subjects. In addition to that, I have to do counseling, consultation, guidance, oh, too much, So I don't know what's happening in your country, but if, teachers have to do everything, probably you can think of alternative way, such as, well, let's hire, counselors at schools or, other specialists in schools to be able to provide better services for students with disabilities. Of course, you have to pay a lot of money to hire different specialists, but you're going to provide, better services and pay back later, Okay, because of time, let me skip this, slide, and you can read it later. And I just mentioned group guidance, and group guidance is really important, especially whenever you provide guidance in regular classrooms. It will be really difficult to do the independent services. In that case, group guidance or counselings are really important, concept to be able to provide better services for students. Okay, and yeah, here's a conclusion. Whenever of the guidance or counseling principle is to be adopted, they should serve to direct the attitudes and activities of the person engaged in the guidance work. So they have value for the person engaged in the guidance work, and also value for a person being guided. And also, they serve to promote a smoothly functioning program of guidance and counseling in the schools. And these should be applied not only to students, but to teachers. And the aims, functions, and the function of the guidance and counseling can be summarized as follows, okay? Developing the ability to adapt to class and school life, fostering the ability and attitude to think about how to be and live as a human being in the present and future. So future is really important. Fostering the ability to form and develop human relationships, and fostering the ability and attitude to make choices, decisions, such as choosing elective subjects and career paths. So in order to promote independency, guidance and counseling will foster those independencies. Okay, here are the references. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Kawai sensei, domo arigatou gozaimasu.
Domo arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you, Professor Norimune Kawai, for the inspiration and valuable insight which have been given to us. It is very motivating us to conduct the research in the same field or in guidance and counseling, which will be improve the quality of the guidance and also the counseling. If I may conclude of your presentation, the guidance and counseling is very important in each school because it is not only to give insight for the student for being right or being correcting the wrong, but also it is more important to give the process of learning to the students. And also the guidance and counseling teacher play an important role in shaping the students' future. It is important in preparing the career and also the future for the students. And also Kawai Sensei explain how to teach students to become independent, to become self-directed students, self-organized students, and also independent students. And Professor Kawai also sharing the guidance and counseling in Japan and also in United States. So give us a valuable insight. It gives us broader knowledge about guidance and counseling. Well, Kawai Sensei, today we have so many participants from all over Indonesia, not only from Jawa, but also from another island, another province of Java. And it is around 550 participants, Professor Kawai. It is very interesting material, interesting topic, and also a useful topic for the guidance and counseling. They can join through Zoom and also YouTube. Okay, and now we come to the question and answer session. For those who wants to deliver a question, please raise your hand, activate your microphone, say your name and your institution. From the Zoom room maybe, the operator, will you please help the participants who wants to ask directly to Professor Kawai? You may raise your hand. Okay, is there any someone who raised their hand, the operator? No? Okay, while waiting for the participants who raised their hand, we have 5 questions actually, Professor Kawai. So, would you like me to read there are two participants raised hand, Mas Muhammad Anggita and also, Mas Muhammad Anggita. Mas Muhammad Anggita, will you please open your microphone and also your camera if it is possible, and mention your name and also your institution. The time is yours, Mas Muhammad Anggita. Hello, Mas Muhammad Anggita, are you there? Okay, yeah, Mas Muhammad Anggita, please deliver your question to Professor Kawai. Okay, Mas Anggita has several obstacles in utilizing the microphone. Okay, maybe the host can unmute or help Mas Muhammad Anggita to open his microphone. Okay, wait a minute, Mas Muhammad Anggita. Okay, please open your microphone, Mas Muhammad Anggita.
Cek.
Okay.
Apakah suara saya terdengar?
What semester you are, Mas?
Cek.
Okay.
Domo Kawai Sensei, watashi wa Kausar desu. I have a question about this regarding work to future. Does that mean that parent and teacher need to know what their children are interested in, which will become their job, especially for those inclusive children who want to work in the community? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think that's a really good question and an important question. So yes, it is really important for teachers and the parents know what kind of difficulties or strengths their kids have, and if they exchange the idea. Sorry, the phone is ringing. Sorry, but there's no. Let me.
大丈夫です。
大丈夫ですか? すいません. Okay. Yes. Yes. It is really important to share the ideas or what they see. Sometimes students behave differently at home and at schools, right? So in that case, it is really critical for parents and teachers exchange the current situations of kids. So that if they can discover new aspects of their children, and sometimes it is really important from different perspectives or different eyesights. have different ideas, or by using or by cooperating other people's, it is really good for us to be able to create better ideas when we create individualized education plan. And also, yeah, community resources. If we can find out good community resources to help us out or help the kid out, it is really important to be able to utilize those resources as a part of the partners to provide better education for the specific kid.
はい。答えてくれてありがとうございました。
Nice question, yeah. The next participants who wants to deliver a question. Who is it? Mas Muhammad Cahyadi. Oh, Pak Muhammad Cahyadi. Yeah. Okay. The time is yours, Pak.
Thank you. I'm from Malang State University. I have two questions for you, Prof. First, is there any general topic or specific topic in every counseling? That's number one. Number two, if we talk in the field, reality or data, quite many children with special needs who are still non-verbal, Prof, and their cognitive abilities are still limited. Can you share kind of counseling has been executed in Japan for those conditioned child? Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, actually, yes, not only for, in terms of the counseling, for your first question, in terms of the counseling, of course, counseling could be provided not only for special needs kids, but also, general kids. So counseling is provided by school psychologists usually in Japan. And whenever, they have certain problems in terms of psychological problems, or, some like, teasing or social problems with other students, or social problems at home, many topics, actually counseling can be applied in Japan. So, but as I told you, counselors are not hired by each building, each school. So school districts hire them, but most of them have to travel around different schools. So having the good personal communications or personal relationships with the students are one of the most difficult things. And this has to be mutual. Mutual communication must be one of the most important things to have the better to serve better services for students with difficulties. But that part has been really issues in Japan. So hopefully, if you have the chance to provide counseling for school systems, hopefully, you can hire, counselors or school psychologists for each building. So that's my hope. And for your second question, for special needs kids, yes, there are so many different types of, special needs, but especially, students have difficulties in terms of cognition, intellectual disabilities or cognitive difficulties. Yes, counseling could be really, difficult to provide for those populations because, their metacognition is limited. So, it is really tough for them to understand what they have learned to become independent. However, counselors still work with students with cognitive difficulties because, they, in that case, they tend to provide like a cognitive behavioral therapy, not only just the cognitive aspects. So by providing how to learn good behaviors, or how to socialize with others, from the behavioral aspects, students with cognitive difficulties tend to learn. So counselors have different, strategies to fit with each student's needs. So depending on the difficulties or what kind of areas of difficulties they have, they can adjust the menus of the counseling programs. hopefully that's answer for you.
Okay, thank you. Clear for
thank
me.
you very
Thanks.
much.
Okay, thank you, Pak Muhammad Cahyadi. The next question will come from Mr. Irfan Budi Handaka. Yeah, okay, please, Pak Irfan. The time is
Okay,
yours.
thank you. Thank you, Sensei KW,
Thank
for
you.
the presentation for the material. It's very good. I'm Irfan Budi Handaka from Ahmad Dahlan University or Universitas Ahmad Dahlan. I'm very happy to meet you again. Event 2 is now through a virtual meeting. Hopefully, I can study again at Hiroshima University. Okay, please allow you to give input for the development of the guidance and counseling study program. Please input what the graduate learning outcome must be processed for guidance and counseling study program. Student relate to competent in the file of guidance and counseling in the setting of children with special needs, with the hope that graduate of the guidance and counseling study program are competent in assisting children with special need. Thank you, Sensei Kawai.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. And Irvan-san helped me a lot when I visited your university. So yeah, he dropped lots of places. So thank you. But anyway, yes, I'm not sure if it's gonna be the direct answer to your comments or question, but yes, counseling, in Japan, in order to become counselors or school psychologists, they don't necessarily, well, nowadays, the new curriculum, they have to learn about disabilities, but, the old curriculum, whenever, most of the counselors, who work out there, they didn't necessarily learn the disability aspects. So they are expecting to work with, students or people with psychological difficulties or, difficulties in their social livings. But consequently, they also have to work with students with disabilities because, let's think of, students with autism. Of course, they have a social communication difficulties. So in that case, even though some students, meet the counselors and saying, oh, I have a social communication problems, but it turned out they are autism or something. So, in that case, if we have the good connection between counseling, guidance and the special needs education and inclusive education, we can serve better, programs and menus for our students. So that's why I just, briefly brought up the United States situation, where many different specialists work together. So, school psychologists, I used to work in the United States as a speech pathologist. And whenever, we create IEPs, individualized education plans, of course, we worked with special education teachers. But in addition to that, we also worked with, school psychologists, counselors, social psychologists, and, school nurses, and other professionals. So by, looking at one student from different perspectives, we get some new ideas or fresh ideas. Oh, I know from the perspective of speech language, but I didn't know the psychological aspects. Let's, merge together into the, their goals or objectives and such. So whenever, we meet, from different aspects or perspectives together, we can create better ideas, better plans for students to, be able to, raise their abilities and the strengths. So, hopefully, Indonesia also, think of how, you guys include different specialists together into school systems. Japan, for some reasons, teachers, do everything almost the time, even though there are some school psychologists working in schools, but most of the time, teachers have to take care of themselves. But at the same time, teachers really like to take care of themselves, by themselves, so that they try not to, hire different, specialists, unfortunately, but they really have, I really hoping they will change their ideas to provide better services for, students with disabilities. So Ervan-san, I'm not sure if, that's going to be related to your comments, but yeah, hopefully it is.
Thank you. Arigato, Sensei Koi.
Okay. Well, I think we can have one more question from the Zoom, and we will move to the question from the chat room and also YouTube. Okay, Mas Muhammad Ramadan, can you make it concise? Please deliver your question in not more than 3 minutes, Mas Muhammad Ramadan. Okay.
Okay. Everybody can hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes. Clear.
Okay, thank you. My name is Satrio. I am in 5th semester of Ahmad Dahlan University, majoring in guidance and counseling. My question is, what is your opinion about the role of counselor in the time of pandemic and the future that has been changed in the pandemic era? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, it is really difficult question though. So yeah, we really have to, well, it's kind of really tough for us to estimate, when we're gonna get out of the pandemic era. But even though we get out of the pandemic era, probably our systems will change. Some of them we're gonna bring back to the original version. But the other things, probably we're going to keep going as the same way as the pandemic era. For example, as I told you, one of the students just emailed me, oh, okay, I'd like to have my class online today, So, because of the pandemic, we can communicate each other using Zoom and other kind of stuff, that could ease, our communication better. So that kind of things, even though we end up with the pandemic era, we can have, right? And the counseling is the same way. So, even though, counseling is, is told better face-to-face. However, even though, we, now we are doing Zoom, but we are still doing face-to-face, right? Have to
Recording
be
in
absent,
progress.
right? But because of, this technology, that helps a lot of, population. So I feel like, well, times of, pandemic, era, hopefully it's going to end pretty soon. And we can exchange each other and meet face to face. But we don't want to lose this option, to be able to provide good services, especially for students who can't go out. Or, probably, we can just think of, well, what kind of choices we can make after COVID-19 or, pandemic situations, what kind of things we are supposed to bring up, bringing back, or we can remain the same thing in the future as well. So if we can think of like that way, in terms of socioeconomic situations, and if students are under low socioeconomic situation and difficult to go to schools, but still there's a place they can take courses remote, they can learn. So we really have to think of how we're going to provide students learning, even though they can't come to schools or they can't, they have to work, well, of course, child labor is prohibited, but still that happening in many countries, right? But so even though, they have to work, daytime, but if we provide, like a tape recorded or recorded, version of the courses, and if they come back to home and look at those lectures, they still can learn. So we really have to flexibly think of how we're going to promote, our students' learning. There should be many options, and we have learned a lot, by experiencing this pandemic situation. So of course there are so many, unfortunate things happening right now, but we also have been learning something, and we really have to utilize what we have learned from this pandemic. So hopefully that is your question. I hope I'm answering your question. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you, Professor Kawai. Well, actually, Professor Kawai, we have several questions from the YouTube channel and also the Zoom chat Zoom. We have 4 questions, so it is okay if we need more time. Professor Kawai? Okay. Well, thank you, Kawai Sensei. Well, actually, we have several questions from the YouTube channel and also from the Zoom chat. We have 3 or 4 questions. Is it okay if we have much time?
Yes, I have 3 minutes to go, but yes, hopefully I can take, as many questions as possible. Yeah.
Okay. So, would you like me to read all of the questions first or one by
Yeah,
one?
that might be helpful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, the first from Miss Kia. She asks about the role and treatment of guidance and counseling for victims of the nuclear radiation in Japan. It is the first question, and then the second is from Mas Fandi Ahmad. He asks, what an appealing presentation about inclusive education at the moment. I'm doing research about inclusive education with the Index for Inclusion by Tony Booth and Ainscoe. What do you think about the index inclusion by them for research and especially for finding novelty? And then the next question from Ms. Dita. She asks, the inclusive education seeks to provide human services for special needs students while still paying attention to other students. How does the counselor position himself in this setting? And the last question from Mas Khorido Hidayat. He asks about the importance of school counselors' attitude. Is it as important as general teachers' attitude, or school counselors' attitude is more important? Because when there is a disability students at school, so the disability students will come first to the counselor before to the general teacher. Okay, I think that's all for the question, Kawai Sensei.
Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, the first question, the nuclear aspects. Actually, well, there are 2 big, nuclear situations. The first one is, almost the end of World War II, and well, Hiroshima. Many people suffered from a bomb. And the second one is, the tsunami in 2011. The nuclear plant was destroyed by the tsunami, and we had a lot of, affection by nuclear. And now, we have pretty much recovered, especially in the recent one in 2011. The areas, of course, certain areas are affected by the nuclear radiation, but now they have pretty much recovered, and the seawater is now clean, and so. But when we had experienced the 2011 tsunami, well, it's the same way as a nuclear weapon in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There are so many, discriminations happened for the people who affected by the, nuclear radiation. So when it happened in 2011, we felt like, the history repeats, because the people, who live the area affected by radiation, were, pretty much, discriminated at the time in 2011. So, when the people in that area try to, get out of the area and try to live in another place, they get denied or something. So, that kind of things, it could happen. So, well, which is sort of related to the rest of the questions, but that's why I feel like the idea of inclusive education or inclusion is really critical. And the pandemic, situation, the COVID-19 is the same way, right? So this one, like personally influenced with other people by the virus. So, the people who are affected by COVID-19 could get, isolated by other people. Of course, in order to keep the good health, they have to be, they have to stay at hospital, and isolation is necessary. However, discrimination, or while people just believe the rumor, and something wrong rumor, and behave wrongly, those kind of things repeatedly happen. So even though our science became advanced, we still experience those kind of difficulties. So probably inclusion is sort of the long-term goal. And but at the same time, whenever we experience difficult situations, we really have to think of who are the victims, and how we can help those victims from the perspective of the counseling and the guidance. Also, from the perspective of special ed, some people, some victims might have difficulties in terms of the learning difficulties, or disorders, disabilities. So those people's difficulty might be doubled or tripled. So we really have to know, okay, how we can help them, even though they're in a disadvantaged situations. So that is the idea of the nuclear situations or difficult situations, or the rest of the which is also answering to the rest of the questions. So how we gonna counseling in those populations. And also, it is also important to think of, not only thinking of how we counseling victims, or people in a difficult situations, but also we really have to counsel the people who discriminate other people. Why they have to, why they discriminate others? What is the basis, or what is the behind aspects of the discriminations? So people who discriminate others might also have the fears, okay, and they might have the cowardness, okay, because I don't have enough confidence, and I'm really afraid of differences. So let's deal with stronger opinions or something. So behind the discrimination, there might be just a belief of rumors, or cowardness, weakness that can be observed. So we really have to know what is the aspects, not only the standing for the victims, but also the violence aspects, or people with discriminate, what's happening to them. We really have to cynically observe both and help both. That might be really important. So, as most of you guys know, the ICD, right? And I'm sorry, ICF, International Classification of Function, not only looking at the individual aspects, but also, environmental aspects is really important. So if we look at both sides, we could solve the problem most of the time, okay? So hopefully, my summary will just answer, everybody's questions now.
Okay, thank you. Well received,
Thank you.
Professor Kawai. I'm sure that there should be many more questions from the participant, but because of the time, so we need to limit the question and answer session here. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to fulfill the attendance list, which the link has been shared through the chat room. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on Prodi BK UAD YouTube channel, because your support means a lot to us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the end of the agenda, that is closing. Let's close our meeting by reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Thank you. Hopefully what we have conducted today will be beneficial for us. I do apologize if there is mistakes intentionally or unintentionally in guiding this event. Let me close this event by Japanese proverb. Atarashi chisiki o manabu koto wa aratana jinsei no hajimari. It means learning a new knowledge is a new life. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well,
Waalaikumsalam
let's take a picture
warahmatullahi
first.
Thank you very much, Sensei.
Okay, let's take a picture
Dari
first,
Sensei.
everyone. Will you please open your camera? And the operator may help us to screenshot. Yeah, let's start from slide 1. Are you ready? Okay, give us the biggest smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yep. Okay. Next. Okay. Next slide. Yep. All right. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. I think that's enough. Thank you, Professor Kawai, and thank you all
Thank
the
you very
participants.
much.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you
Sensei
on the
Kawai.
next agenda. Goodbye.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, Prof.
Prof. Thank you, Kawai Sensei.
Arigato, terima kasih.
Terima kasih.